Right, okay. Hello everyone. Uh, this is just going to be a bit of a off-the-cuff rant video. This actually has nothing to do with anything in my channel um, in terms of like videos or anything like that. I just thought I'd make this just because I needed a rant. And though I could rant to my family and my friends about this topic, I don't think they would quite understand on the level that I would need them to in order to really get my point across. At least on and discuss it in a way that I feel like I feel satisfied with the conversation. So, for those who don't know, I actually made an off-cuff comment on one of my videos, one of my Dark Side videos, that I mentioned that I got into Warhammer 40k. I got into it last year, round about the time that Space Marine 2 was being released. And that was when I got into it. I watched, like, my first real look into the lore was watching a gameplay through of Space Marine 1. And then I listened to the podcast WARHAMMER. And that was kind of my introduction to Warhammer 40,000, giving me the kind of breakdown of the different factions and their history. Now, obviously, back then I knew nothing about 40k, and I was pretty blasé to a lot of the different ideas that they had going, including some more controversial ones. Like, for example, I know a lot of people don't like these, but aren't as bothered by them as they were when they first came out. It was the Primaris Marines. Like, I love the idea of Primaris Marines, and I liked the idea of what they were like when they first came out, which was Space Marines that were more resistant to their gene flaws than their firstborn brothers, which were the original Space Marines. And over time I learned why people didn't like them, and that they were just an excuse to mark up the price of the minis and stuff like that. Now, I personally do not play the tabletop game. My Warhammer dabbling goes as far as I own a couple of books on my Kindle. I'm subscribed to a few 40k YouTube channels like The Pontius and Marshall Beaumont. I keep... Sorry if I've pronounced that wrong, by the way. Sorry. And Flash Kids, who do Space King. And I feel like I kind of joined at the worst time, because at the minute, for those who don't know, the way tabletop games work is that they go through editions. At the minute, Games Workshop is through 10th edition, and I think it's at the end, like it's nearing the end of 10th edition, and it's going to be soon going into 11th edition. Now, throughout 10th edition, for those, once again, who aren't too in the know about what happened in 40k, 10th edition involved quite a few things. They first tried to get rid of the Death Watch, which is a faction in Warhammer 40k for the Imperium of Man. And then, despite doing that, showed them a lot in Space Marine 2, and then in a codex basically brought them back because of backlash. And another thing they did, which is probably the biggest issue so far, is they brought in female Custodes. Now, Custodes, I'm going to go for a very quick rundown. Custodes are the private guard of the Emperor of Mankind, who's the guy who leads humanity. He's known as the God Emperor, the Emperor of Mankind, or some, by the fan base call him Big E. But over time, I learned a lot about it, and I learned a lot about Warhammer, and I learned certain things like my favourite factions are the Blood Angels for the Imperium of Man. Like, they're my favourite chapter. My favourite Chaos chapter in terms of aesthetics is the 1,000 Suns. My favourite in terms of lore for the Chaos ones anyway is the Night Lords. And then, my favourite Xenos race is the Drukhari. But I learned things like why female custodians don't make any sense, because to put it into very brief terms, essentially the way you make a Space Marine is that you, in a way, have to make it as close to their gene father as possible. So if they're from the Blood Angels, for example, they have to be quite close in terms of biology to Sanguinius, for the Primarch Sanguinius, who rules the Blood Angels, or ruled the Blood Angels before he died, in order for the gene seed to work. If you're incompatible with the gene seed can kill the person. The Custodies, this is even more so the case, as this is kind of like the way the Emperor did it was like essentially he didn't give them necessarily a gene seed. The way you make a Custodian is a very unique process, which basically turns each noble human from Earth into this almost Primarch level of super soldier. Which is insane, because like Primarchs in the Warhammer 40k space are like nearing god level. Ignore my phone. And I learned a lot about it, and I was like, okay, so female custodians can't exist for multiple reasons. One, because they're more likely to be incompatible genetically to gene seed, because one, they're female and all the Primarchs are male, so that already causes a massive issue. Second of all, logistically, in military sense, it makes no sense, because women can, women are like the most important thing when it comes to population, and whether you think that's a controversial statement, honestly, I don't give a fuck. But they are incredibly important to making sure any species that has a dual sex thrives. Also, another thing is law related. If the Emperor never wanted the Space Marines to replace mankind. They were a tool for mankind. And so creating female Space Marines made no sense to him. And plus, there's a thing in Chaos called a Demunculaba, which is I'm not going to go into what that is. All I'm going to say is that it is a fate worse than death for women in the Warhammer space. And that is, and if you get female Space Marines, that's more likely going to happen to them. In that case. So, learning about all of that, and then finding out about the recent stuff that's been going on with Games Workshop, such as having authors that not only celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk, a mild right-wing debater, who, regardless of whether you like him or hate him, I don't really care. I don't really care for him. I didn't agree with him on a lot of points. But I didn't know that much about him either, so I don't have too hard of an opinion on him. But also celebrated 9/11 in terms of they thought it was a good thing, and that's fucking terrible. Like, I'm not American, I'm English. So, that even to me, that was like, what the fuck? That's awful. And I think Games Workshop also shouldn't make remarks on American politics when they're a British company. You're a British company for tabletop games about giant burly men fighting aliens. Like, what are you doing? And recently they've also done things like they've released sprues, head sprues, for what is essentially female Space Marines, meaning that most likely in 11th edition, female Space Marines are going to be a thing, which is awful because it goes against the law, and it kind of spits in the face of everything that the Warhammer fans that have been in it since 1st edition or 2nd edition have kind of wanted and loved about Warhammer. And I'm kind of sad that I joined during a time where Warhammer is essentially, where Games Workshop essentially is setting themselves on fire. But, we all know why they're doing this. We all know why they're you know, not communicating with each other in their different departments, and why they're banning fan projects, and why they're forcing the woke agenda on their fans, and why they hate their fans. It's because they want to be bought out. They want to be bought out and become this massive company like Disney or Amazon. They want to become these massive corporations, which I get in a way. Companies have got to make profit. Companies have got to make money. That's just the nature of things. And yes, it's their IP. They can do whatever the fuck they want with it. But that doesn't mean there won't be consequences for that. Such as you lose your customer base. Look at Age of Sigmar, which is their fantasy stuff. That next to nobody's a fan of it, honestly. Like, I wanted to get into Age of Sigmar, and even I was like, this is dog shit. But, you know, I think there's only one way for Games Workshop to fix itself. Because I was watching Marshall's video on it, basically being like, they need to start communicating with each other. That's not going to happen. They've been printing money since, like, 8th edition. Probably even before then. And they've become mainstream as of 10th edition. Because of Space Marine 2. Like, last night I bought the Dawn of War game. Like, the first Dawn of War. Because I was watching Arch play Dawn of War. And now I've heard that they've done things like remove the word guns and muscle from their setting. Not from their setting, but from one of their most famous quotes. It's like, you're a grim, dark universe. You're a grim, dark universe. You have people, you have soldiers where literally the law on them is that they received a lethal wound, but because they were so useful and so needed, they were thrown into a sarcophagus, into a mechanized coffin, and forced to serve for eternity. You have Space Marines that are like vampires that like lose their minds and think that they're their gene father and kill both enemy and friend alike, who then have to join a special squad if they survive, where they're just sent on an eternal death mission, where they just kill until you drop. But oh no, mentioning that only men can be Space Marines, and only men can be Custodes, and only fucking, they're only the sons of the Emperor. No, that's too much. That's fucking sexist. The fuck are you talking about? You've got the Sisters of Battle, you've got the Sisters of Silence, and the women who are into Warhammer are usually playing Tyranids or Orcs. But no, because you want the fucking poster boys to be ruined like everything else in every fucking IP. Sorry, I get very passionate about things that I love, especially when I've only come into them recently. Like I said, I'm not a lore buff, I'm not a lore expert. You know, leave that to channels like the Pontius and Arch for stuff like that. But I think there's only one way to fix Games Workshop. And it's that they get what they want. And that is that they get bought out by another massive entity. But instead of getting what they thought they were going to get, which is get bought out by a massive entity, which then just goes, yes, you can do this, yes, you can do that, and we'll just throw infinite money at you. What happens is they get fucking gutted. That everyone basically in Games Workshop gets fucking fired. They get fired. Warhammer Plus gets shut down. Tacticus gets a call saying, hey, don't work on that female Custodes character because no one's gonna fucking like Tirith. Because everyone fucking hates female Custodes. Call the people who are working on the models, hey, don't make the female Space Marine models. No one's gonna buy them, it's just burning money. And trim down the fat on their legal team. Because they like to sue people who love their fandom and make fan stuff. Like, that's why Warhammer Plus exists. It's so they can go, hey, do you want to not go to prison or have to pay us forever for making fan stuff. Work for us at Warhammer Plus so we can tell you what you can make and can't make. So we can have control over you. Which is fucking bullshit. But essentially someone does need to buy Warhammer out. Someone needs to buy Warhammer out and basically say, fuck you. We're firing all of these departments that you do not need. We're decanonizing the tithes, which is the codex that brought in female custodies. We're bringing back some of the old lore. We're getting rid of some of this new lore that you've created. We're decanonizing female space marines. We're getting rid of this dog shit. And we're actually gonna make Warhammer for the fans again. Instead of for the fucking woke ideologues and the fucking idiots on Twitter who go, it needs to be more inclusive, but don't buy the models, don't buy the codexes, don't play the game, and don't give a shit. Because that's what you always find out is about these IPs. It happened to Star Wars, which I was a massive fan of, and I saw that get corroded in the fucking dust. I tried to get into Vampire the Masquerade, and I saw that was already getting fucking destroyed and dismantled. I saw it with pretty much everything I loved as a kid. DC, Marvel, Star Wars. And then I found this last year, and I was like, oh, this is going to be really cool. Like, I'm not normally into Grimdark, but I saw, like, the Primarchs coming back and stuff like that, and I thought, oh, that's sick. Like Gilliman and Lionel Johnson. And I liked that idea, and I was like, fuck it, I'll get into Warhammer. And then I'm seeing all this, and I'm like, great. I joined just as the burning was about to start. So yeah, Games Workshop does need to be bought out. It does need to be bought out, and it needs to be burnt to a fucking crisp. The entire company needs restructuring in terms of tons of people need firing and replacing. Entire departments need to be shut down and rebuilt from the ground up. And basically, they need to go back to bare bones in just making models and codexes. Black Library needs reorganizing, White Dwarf needs reorganizing, and what needs to be happening most importantly is that you hire people that are willing to communicate with each other and the fans and not see a little bit of success and go, well, fuck the fans, we've now got infinite money. Like, that's never worked for a company. Look at Disney, look at Marvel, look at DC, look at Star Wars. That's never worked out well. And now Games Workshop is doing the same. And as someone who's only got into this last year, it really makes me fucking angry. Because I don't want to look in a few years' time still being a fan of Warhammer, still loving the Blood Angels, playing the Dawn of War games, playing Space Marine 2 or 3, and then I go into my 6 millionth video, I go watch a 6 millionth video of Arch going, basically saying anyone who got into Warhammer after, like, 6th edition is a fucking casual wokest. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here wanting to learn about Warhammer, but I'm scared to ask questions about the lore because older fans are going to be like, well, are you actually a fan or did you join after 10th edition? Because you're probably just a casual. Which I'll admit, I am a bit more of a casual fan. I do like some of the more comedic sides of it. There's some of the more optimistic sides of it. But I also respect it as a grim, dark setting. And I just want it to do well. I'm just doing this because I need to rant. And so I am sorry if I've gone off topic a few times or if I've left some things out. But I genuinely needed to get this off my chest. And I'm sorry if I've gotten a little too angry. I get passionate about these things. I just care. I've seen too many things that I'm a fan of just get ruined. And I don't want that to be the same for Warhammer. I want to be able to one day say, yeah, I own the models, yeah, I play the tabletop, or yeah, I buy the official stuff. I don't want to have to resort to finding ways to get models 3D printed or find ways to ignore the lore, because the lore is what brought me in. I don't want to hate the lore when it was the lore that brought me in the first place. So I think that's all I've got to say on it. Um, if anyone does see this, I hope you can just understand where I'm coming from. If you don't know anything about Warhammer, I would suggest watching the Archcast. I would suggest watching the Pontius. I would suggest watching a couple of episodes from Paul Hammer. I don't recommend channels like Bricky or Major Kill and things like that, because they quite often either get things wrong or they more just shit on lore rather than actually explain any of it to you. Um, so yeah, I would more go to like I say, the Pontius, Archcast, Marshall, Beaumont, those types of people. If I can, I will put their channels in the description. Not that they need the help from me, of course. I'm a tiny channel, but it's more because I love Warhammer, and I'm just pissed off that I've joined such an amazing universe just as the universe is imploding. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, thanks for letting me have this. I've really needed this.